having an active reference to textures is really helpful. So from time to time, I like to go on the internet, look for something, or take a digital camera out in the field, take some pictures, and turn them into a higher res form of reference so I can use them for 3D. I know that UVs are going to be a lot smaller in some cases because when you take a picture of a texture, usually what you're doing is you're going about 12 or maybe a foot and a half off the surface and taking a picture of it. Well, your UVs are always going to be smaller than that. So taking reference to this, here's an example. Here's the typical what I see as a texture being taken by a digital camera by either students or people on the internet. Okay? And this is all well and good. You get lots of detail. This could almost stand to be a little bit more detailed. But when you're in Photoshop, what you have to do is start taking those and pasting them in. And shrinking them up. And then sharpen them. Okay, then we can proceed to do one of these numbers. A lot of times if there's a crack here, what I'll do is flip it. And that way I can get more detail. Then I'll Control E that. And I'll stretch that out. And you can stretch these wood textures pretty far and still get a lot of detail. You can also squish them up and get a lot more detail. If there's some blending to do, best to do that just before you flatten it out. So in this case, I see a little bit of a line between the two. I just saw it after I mirrored it. So just a little blending really helps. There we go. So Control E again. A lot of times you don't see that stuff until you start stretching it out or repeating it over and over. Alright, now keep in mind this is going to look like a pattern at first. And every once in a while you can flip it this way to fight that pattern. And you can also take that texture and blend it a little bit further in. But really, I can zoom way in on this, and I don't see that seam anywhere. So that's the great thing about wood texture. You can get away with a lot and just stack it closer or stack it farther apart to fight the pattern. Alright, now to get rid of the pattern altogether, we just look for another high-res texture to throw on top as a different type of layer. And certainly that can be another wood texture. Here's a marred surface. I don't like the big seam in the center, but still, let's take it and copy that and paste it in. We'll shrink that down, rotate it. Stretch it out some. And let's look at this as a different type of layer. Now I use my wheel mouse here, and you can see that instantly, just as a darken layer, provides some kind of variation for it. And I'm just wheeling my mouse around. There's soft light. So if I use soft light here, and over here I use darken color, now I've effectively made a wood texture that is very different all the way through it and very high res. Alright, so let's use this on one of the models and see what happens. So this would be general wood texture. And then what I could do is go over to Maya and apply that to one of the models. Generic wood texture, there it is. Drop that in there. Alright, so I'll make a new Lambert. Attach that to color. And here, this model right here, if you look at this texture right here, this is the same texture over here. You can see that by there's a little flaw right here on it. Okay, and if you look at my UVs here for a second, all I did was move my UVs around these pieces so it doesn't appear on the front of it, and sometimes it'll appear on the back of it. And you can see those lines. Well, this is where a general texture might come in handy. And look at the difference. It's like night and day. But it still matches the other textures. And that's what you want. Same with this one right here. All I did was lay out my UVs so they were up and down. So that any time a board had that, it had the right wood grain. Well, again, by adding a general texture to it, look how much difference that is. Now with this piece, it would be more of a specialized piece where it would have that going on for it. Alright, so I just wanted to show you that, you know, when you get bored, take a digital camera, go outside, start taking some pictures, get some general textures built, so you can utilize these over and over again. And really, you know, if you, let's say, needed a different type of wood grain or whatever, you have this file available to you, and you can just kind of manipulate it. You can add colors to it, you can do color correction to it, and every time you can make variations based upon this one. I like the color balance. That's a really nice one. So you can see, you can just get all kinds of different variations of this. Alright, so that's what I need you to do, you know, is when you're texturizing your pieces for your factory warehouse, is to come up with textures that look like that. they must have textured detail. And that's what I'm trying to fight, because students do not do this. They turn in the worst textures sometimes. So I'm trying to make these series so when I do teach a class, I see a lot higher quality texturing being done on models. Alright, now we're going to look at this concept in the next video. This is how to make random glass so it looks broken, and then we're going to look at a texture that might fit in this frame so we can use it over and over and have different variations of the frame. That's in the next video.